Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am back. So if you don't know me, I'm Laura. I usually make bookish kind of videos on this channel, but I have been on hiatus for the last probably about 2 months I think since I last posted, but that's all changing today. So I've been gone for the last few months, like I said, just because I had some work things going on and exam to prepare for and things like that, but that's all finished for now. So I am back in the swing of it, back making YouTube videos, which I'm super excited for. I missed making these videos. I thought I would come back on and do a reading wrap up of the last few months, just quickly go through all the books that I've read in the months of May, June and July, because they are the months that I haven't done wrap-ups for on this channel, just to keep you all up to date, because I'm sure you're eagerly awaiting, wondering what I've been reading. And yeah, just so that I'm all caught up and ready to start again in August. So I'm going to do super speedy run-throughs on each book, just because otherwise this video will be ridiculously long and I am boiling hot. I've had to turn off the fans in my bedroom and it is hot in here today, and also I have no battery. So all of them combined, we're going to make it quick rapid fire wrap-ups. Starting off in May, the first book I read was The Woman in the Window by AJ Finn. This was on my Kindle for literally years and years, perhaps even coming on to a decade. I bought it pretty soon after it came out and then just never picked it up. So I'm really glad I actually finally got round to it, and I was really pleasantly surprised actually. This was a very classic thriller, psychological thriller. You never know whether to trust the main character. One of them kind of books, and I actually really enjoyed it. I haven't read like a proper just classic thriller for a long time, and it really got me questioning all the characters and not trusting anyone, which I love in a thriller. So yeah, really glad I got to that one. The next one I read was another Kindle, very different genre this time. I read Colty by Mariana Zapata. I loved this. This is my second book that I've read from her, and I definitely preferred this one over, I think it's from, I can't remember what it was called, but it was the ice skating one. I did really enjoy that as well, but this one really hit differently for me. I really love this. This follows kind of grumpy sunshine. He's her soccer coach, adult soccer coach, like she's an adult soccer player. There's some enemies to lovers kind of running through, very angsty. He was like a grumpy sunshine, but he was like very honest with his emotions. He was like, yeah, I like you. And what? I don't know, I just loved his character so much, and their romance, and I still think about it now, even though I read it back in May, which is pretty good for me because normally I forget books within about 5 minutes, so that's already a good sign. And yeah, I definitely want to pick up some more books by her. I really love a sports romance, I've learned from this. Another classic thriller I read, Apples Never Fall by Liane Moriarty, again has been on my TBR for a few years. I got it as a gift for Christmas and I'm glad to have finally got round to it. This again was more of a domestic thriller mystery. I would say there wasn't really that much thrilling elements in it. Older woman named Joy who goes missing, and her 4 adult children are trying to figure out what happened. Was the dad responsible? Was he not? There's a strange character that kind of comes in and is living in their home, and yeah, we go back into the past to kind of look at their childhood growing up, and then kind of split back to present day and kind of how all the dots connect. I did enjoy this. Like when I read it, it was very intriguing and I did want to know what happened next, but it wasn't like a thriller from that I was expecting, you know, it wasn't exciting. But yeah, still glad I picked it up and would pick up another Liane Moriarty in the future. Glad to have another like classic thriller like ticked off the list, because I feel like there's so many of these books that I just haven't read, and I'm feeling left out, guys, so I'm glad I got to it. Another book I read in May was Threads of Life. I do own this physically, but I've actually lent it to my mother-in-law because I think she'll enjoy it, so I don't have it with me at the moment. But this is a beautiful book. Like, the cover is gorgeous, which is pretty much why I picked it. It was definitely a cover buy. It follows the history of embroidery throughout the years and sewing, and how it's kind of impacted predominantly women and their lives, and how it is replicated in different cultures and things like that. I did like this. It was one that I put on hold for a long time and didn't think I was going to go back to, but it came up in the TBR game I play, so I picked it back up, and I'm glad I did finish it, but I would say it wasn't that interesting to me. I don't know, I'm not into embroidery and sewing. I think it's amazing, but I don't do it personally. I feel like maybe if I had that connection to it, I would obviously enjoy it a lot more. Very much one of the ones where it's like, it's a me problem, not the book problem, if that makes sense. But yeah, I would recommend it if you are into embroidery, sewing, craft and history and things like that, because it was interesting in parts, just not quite all of it gripped me. I would also like photos, like I would like more pictures, because I was really struggling to imagine these exquisite embroideries that she was talking about, and she put them in so much detail, but I just wasn't picturing it, and I'm like, I just want some photos, like tell me what you mean, because I'm sure it's incredible. The next book I read was a reread. This is The Wolf Den by Elodie Harper. This follows Amara and a group of other women who live in Pompeii, and they live in a brothel and they work as slaves in the brothel. This, again, like I say, was a reread. I actually listened to this on audiobook. I read this in the hopes of them picking up The House with the Golden Door, the sequel, quickly soon after. I haven't done that yet, but I want to. And I just didn't quite remember enough of the plot points to feel like I could go straight into the sequel, because it's been a couple of years. So anyway, I picked this back up and it's incredible. Like, it is so emotional and harrowing and beautiful, and just this group of women are just incredible. So yeah, I definitely want to get to the next book, and I think it's a trilogy in the end, and read some more about their story. So one of my most anticipated books of this year, The Household by Stacey Halls, I got to at the beginning of June, I believe. This follows a group of girls in the 1800s who are kind of kept at a home for fallen women, which was set up by Charles Dickens, and it kind of just details their life and the troubles they get into and kind of the friendships and family that they make along the way. I really love this. Like I said, it was one of my most anticipated books of the year. Didn't quite love it as much as I've loved other Stacey Halls books, but I did. It was beautiful still. Like, it was still a good 4.5 stars. There was just something missing from it that I can't quite put my finger on that made it just not quite a 5-star. But you know when you get one of them 5-star feelings, I didn't quite get it with this, but I did love it. It was beautiful. I think it was a little bit slow to get into, which maybe kind of hindered my love for it. But once I got into the story, I was hooked, and yeah, I really liked this, and I just think Stacey Hall's writing is just impeccable. Another book that has been on my TBR for a hot minute was Death on the Cherwell. I had this probably for about 6 years. I picked it up when I lived in Oxford on the River Cherwell and never got to it. But I finally got to it thanks to the TBR game. So this is one of the British crime classic books by Mavis Dorrell Hay, following a group of girls at Persephone College, and they kind of stumble upon or get themselves involved in a murder or a mysterious death. Anyway, I loved the setting of this. It was set in Oxford. Like I said, I trained in Oxford for uni, and I just love Oxford as a city, so it was really nostalgic going back to it and visiting it again through the book, and all the colleges and things like that I really loved. That being said, the actual story was not that interesting. The actual mystery, I didn't really care for it at all. I couldn't tell you what happened actually since reading this. I kind of finished it and completely forgot about it. Yeah, it just wasn't very exciting. It was very repetitive and just not that interesting, unfortunately. It's probably like an actual, like a 2-star book, but the setting is really what brought it back for me and kept me interested and kept me reading. Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it to many people. Okay, moving on to something a bit different. The next 2 books I picked up after that were Binding 13 and Keeping 13 by Chloe Walsh. Now, I will start this segment by saying these are not well-written books, like, just putting that out there. I started reading Binding 13 and I just thought, what am I reading? This is not that good. Well, before I knew it, I picked up the sequel and now I want to read the rest of the series. I can't explain to you, something just hooked me in these books. Like I say, the writing wasn't great, it got better, it did get better, became a lot more tolerable. But something about the characters and the storyline and the drama, I just got hooked, and yeah, like I say, now I want to read the rest of the series. There's a really nice friendship group in here. I'm looking forward to reading, I can't even remember his name now, Claire, and I can't remember the guy's name. Their story, which I think is the last one, so I've got to get through a couple more before I get to that one. A lot of like trigger warnings and a lot of drama and angst in these books, but yeah, like I say, I just got hooked, and they are like 800 pages each, I'm pretty sure, like unnecessarily long. But I literally threw through this. I think I read Keeping 13 in like 2 days, so that's called a sign for something, right? Another one of my most anticipated reads of the year, and another romance, was Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. Now I'll start by saying I did a video, I think it was my most anticipated reads video, where I included this book, where I said if you have read one of Ali Hazelwood's adult romances, you have basically read them all in terms of plot and storyline and the characters. So if you have read The Love Hypothesis and you didn't like it, you're probably not going to like Love Theoretically, for example. But I did, so therefore I really enjoy all of her books. Even though they're very repetitive and samey, I love them. That being said, this is actually very different, and I was pleasantly surprised. I was expecting, again, the same kind of formula to her books, and whilst it did have some of the similar points, it was also very different. This one is a friends with benefits kind of scenario. I did really enjoy it. I didn't quite love it as much as her other adult romances. Like I say, it is very different, and I wanted just a bit more from it. I don't know if it was too short or what, but I just wanted a little bit more. But it was still like a solid 4-star read for me. Ali Hazelwood, she can write. What can I say? She can write. But yeah, I'm struggling to think of things to actually say about this, because I must say I don't really remember too much of it. I obviously remember the friends with benefits, but yeah, there's just not that much to the story, and I felt like it could be fleshed out a little bit more. But yeah, like I said, it's still Ali Hazelwood and I still loved it, just not quite as much as her other books. So moving on to my July reads, my most recent books that I've read. The first one I read was Our Wives Under the Sea, which I read on Kindle. This one, I knew the premise going in because I've seen it a lot over BookTube. We kind of follow two wives, and one of the characters went on like a deep sea mission and kind of came back very different. And then her wife is kind of dealing with that and adjusting to how she's come back. It's very hard to explain because it is just a difficult to explain book. It's quite short, and yeah, like I say, I'd heard the premise before going into it, and I know everyone loved it, but I still didn't really know what to expect. It was very dark, claustrophobic, weird, very odd, but in like a very good way. It was one of them books where it just exists, like it just is. You know, I can't, maybe because I'm not an intellectual, but I can't say that much about it. It just was a bit weird, and I read it and I appreciated it for what it was. I haven't tried to like deep dive into the meaning of it. I'm sure there is a lot of like underlying themes and meanings that I can grasp from it, but I just haven't. I've just kind of appreciated it for what it was. Setting and the atmosphere like was so thick, like I felt like I was part of this atmosphere, this dark, morbid atmosphere. Yeah, it was really good. I would say it was like the perfect length. It was quite short. I think it was only a couple of 100 pages. And I would say any longer than that, I probably would have got lost in it. But for what it was, I really, really enjoyed it. And definitely, like I say, want to pick up some more from Julia Armfield. I think she's got an ebook out quite recently, actually, Burial Rites. Is that right? Which I might look into as well. I read another Kindle Unlimited book. I read Flawless by Elsie Silver. This was my first dip my toes into cowboy romance, and I actually really liked it. I was very pleasantly surprised. I really did not know what I was getting into going into this book, but it was just really nice. Like, it was like a really comforting story, and definitely want to read some more of that series. I think it follows like a group of brothers, the cowboys or brothers, living on a ranch. So yeah, definitely looking forward to reading a bit more of that. I'm not sure what the next one in the series is, but just like a solid romance. And yeah, I didn't really know how I'd feel about the cowboy situation, because that's not really a world I'm that familiar with, but I liked it. It was fun. It was different. And then finally, the last book I have to talk about is Butter by Asako Yuzuki. This I have literally just finished yesterday, part of my book club pick for July. Again, one of my most anticipated reads for this year. I was a bit disappointed. With it. I'm still trying to grasp my full thoughts, but it wasn't the 5-star book I was hoping it would be. It was a very indulgent book, lots of long descriptions about food, which did get my stomach rumbling, I must say. But as interesting as the premise was, I didn't really get much from this book. I didn't really get it. Like, the more we were unraveling, the less I was getting, the more lost I was. There would be bits where I'm like, oh yeah, like I kind of can follow this story now. The next chapter I'd be lost again. I don't really get the point of it. And for a book this big, I feel like there needs to be a point. I need to get it, and I'm sure there was a point there, but I couldn't get it. I couldn't get onto it. There were parts I really enjoyed, like the middle part, I was like, it was really picking up and I was getting interested in it. But then by the end, I couldn't tell you. I actually didn't really know how this story ended. It's one of those books where I finish it and I'm like, that could have been the end of a chapter. Like, it didn't feel like the end of the book. And yeah, maybe this is a me problem. Like I say, I'm not an intellectual reader. Maybe that's my problem. But I just hoped I would love this a little bit more than I did. I'd probably rate it like a 2.5 if I had to pick. Which is a shame because I was really looking forward to it, but I feel like it's definitely going to give us some good discussion points for the book club, so hey, that's a win at least, I guess. So that was my whistle-stop tour of all of my May, June and July reads. Sorry if it felt like a little bit rushed, but like I say, I am boiling. And I read some of these books so long ago, and I'm the kind of reader that books go in one and go out the other. Like, I do not remember books for more than 5 minutes, so this was a bit of a struggle trying to remember what happened in these books, trying to remember how I found these books. But I would say actually overall I've had a good few months of reading. I've definitely done a lot more mood reading than following my TBR. I think if you go back and watch my June TBR, have I read any of them books? Probably not. But like I say, I had a lot going on these last few months, so I just wanted to kind of put no pressure on myself and just kind of read for enjoyment, which obviously I always do, but not kind of force myself to read books just because they've been on my TBR, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think I'm probably going to carry on with the mood reading for August. There's a few books I want to get to. I've got some of my most anticipated books that I've got hold of that I want to read, hopefully for a vlog, so that should be coming. So yeah, hopefully you have enjoyed this video. It feels a bit weird to go back to talking to a camera again after not doing it for so long, but I have really enjoyed it, and I actually have missed, even though I've not been on BookTube for long, I've really missed the community and missed filming and editing all the videos and things like that. So yes, happy to be back. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.